All right, I got a little sway, a little sapase up in my spirit. Just moving. I'm just saying, because I'm excited. I've been waiting for this conversation for 2 years. It feels like it. And so it is an absolute honor and pleasure, y'all, to have this special guest. I don't know what y'all doing in y'all lives, but sometimes you got to put on that shirt that feel good and just throw your leg out, let your hips do what they do. And I don't care if you're listening to this like at your cubicle. Like, go ahead, let your hips move. It's okay. Just get it. All right, let me stop acting up because I feel like my wonderful guest is going. She just gonna look at me and she gonna give me that eye like, Craig, you're doing too much, and I am, but that's fine. It's like it's like, all right, loves. So, welcome to Brave Voices in Education, a podcast where boldness meets brilliance and healing meets hustle. I'm Craig Aarons Martin. If you ain't never heard of me, I'm an educator, advocate, and curator of courageous conversations and sometimes angelic troublemaking. If you ask me, this particular space is designed for those who refuse to shrink and lead from heart. I hope that y'all enjoy this cup of courage, y'all. Let's go ahead and brave it together. So I spent some time over the last 2 summers, actually 3 summers now, actually in company and community with this beautiful human being. I honestly know I'm a better soul because she made me feel seen at one of the hardest times in my life and career. And I don't know if she knows how deep that has mattered for me. And I'm gonna lean in. Today's guest is someone who reminds us that love isn't just feeling, it's a strategy, a blueprint, it's a call to action. Parazon. We gonna get it right. She gonna correct me, and the Haitians don't be coming for me in the comments. I know y'all are, but that's all right. I love y'all, and I'm gonna work on my hooked on phonics. All right, but Annie is a founder and CEO of Love Before All, an inspiring platform, but actually an inspired and absolutely necessary movement dedicated to building stronger communities, elevating wellness, creating spaces where love is the foundation for all the growth and transformation your heart can desire. With a background in business, leadership, and organizational strategy, including an executive MBA, y'all, Annie provides and combines her sharp intellectual vision with a deep understanding of human connection. Through her work, she empowers leaders, educators, and change makers to prioritize emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and care as non-negotiable parts of success. Annie, welcome to Brave Voices. How is your heart today?
I love that introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My heart is swelling after that one. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. It is big, it is full, it's grateful, it's
Mm,
grounded, and it is centered.
yeah. You were one of there was a couple of really um a couple of teachers who I didn't expect I didn't see coming. When we were sitting, we had met, we're doing the program, Tell Transformative Educational Leadership Program. And we were sitting at the top, we were at a venue. I'm not gonna call their name out because I don't need them coming from me. I don't feel like it. I don't even have the energy for it. But we were at this venue that has a history, historic history of like mindfulness practices and embodiedness and, wellness and all the things. And we were sitting on the deck having lunch and talking. And it was a very interesting moment where someone from the community, asked questions that were trying to really understand why were we there. And you had such a centering spirit and energy that I think we all felt when it's like, wow, we're in a place that was supposed to be, that we were told would be inclusive, welcoming, and loving. And here they are. And it's like, here we go again. We ain't even, like, the seats ain't even warm yet. Not only was that powerful, the way that you helped to recenter us and reframe, like, this is an opportunity for us to teach those who may not have that knowledge, but also a moment where you held my hand through a very difficult conversation that I think we were having because anti-Blackness was surfacing in all these different ways. And you still had a way of, even though hurting people were continuing to perpetuate hurt, intentional or not, but you had a way of holding us through that. And holding people tender, even when you're like, but you the one who did this. And I love the way you did that. But I also love the fact that you gave me space to say how I felt about a thing and made me feel like, okay, there's still another way to still engage with folks, even if I feel like I've been harmed and hurt. And so I appreciated that. And I hold that so much because you've been such a model for me as I continue to grow as a human.
Thank you, thank you. That's really inspiring. Um, as a teacher, this is helping me realize as a teacher, you do stuff on a regular basis, and then there are some days you're like, "Is this even worth it?" And then I have a conversation like this that's like, "Yeah, this is why you wake up and you choose to be the person that you are."
Yeah.
Because every now and then, someone reminds you, like, "This is it right here. This is why you get up. This is why you live in and on purpose.
Yeah.
This is why you prioritize love." So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I thought I was gonna be fired that summer. I'm like, they gonna report back. So, the school done paid for me to be here. And like Craig done cussed out people and they got track marks and stuff is going on. The building is no longer serving ice cream. I'm like, yep, because of Craig. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on because good lord, this my therapist will be happy that I'm talking about stuff that was like up in my the crevices of my ankle. All right, so let's go. Would love for you to just share a little bit more about the origin stories of like the origin of just this gift. You not just Annie, but we call you Love. And so I'm curious, like, how did you arrive at love before all as this defining moment for you? And I'm wondering, like, what made you realize that love needed to be at the center of not just your work, but the work of organizations, of communities. Like I've been curious about that.
Well, I have been an educator all my life, and I remember, like, now that we're thinking about it, I remember my brothers and sisters, like, at a very young age, dreaming about ways that we can love on children. And so I knew I was going to work with children from a very young age. And being from Haiti,
Mhm.
doctor was the only way that that was presented to me. So for the longest, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And then I got to college and Vanderbilt told me, no, that wasn't it
Mm.
for me. So after college graduation, I had the privilege of starting to work at an early childhood education site. And I've had the privilege of teaching children all the way up to kindergarten. So my age is below the kindergarten age.
Okay.
And quickly in that space, I started to find that the cyclical problems
Hmm.
were coming into my classroom every year.
Hmm.
So, like, I would be in the classroom, I would see the problems, I would love the children through the problems, much in the same way I think my family loved me through some of those things. So, it's like a programming repetition thing. And then I realized that I wanted to step out of the classroom to start to deal with the problem because I realized it was cyclical. So I'm like, okay, I'll step out of the classroom and try to deal with these problems
Hmm.
from the systemic point of view. So I started coaching teachers, but my impact. And then shortly thereafter, I learned about the nonprofit world. And the nonprofit world
Hmm.
breeds scarcity.
Yeah.
And I love nonprofit, don't get me wrong. They do some
Mhm.
amazing work, but a lot of the work is rooted in scarcity mindset. It is rooted in quantity, not necessarily quality.
Mhm.
It is rooted in I need to secure this funding for me and not so much how do we collaborate to see how we can kind of resource ourselves to support a larger population.
Mhm.
So in that space, I started to this last organization I was in before I started Love Before All. It got to a point that walking in the building, like I stopped embodying the love that I wanted to be, and it started to be noticeable. My supervisor would be like, "Are you okay?
Mm.
You look like you don't want to be here." And at the time, I did not have the language to explain what was going on.
Mhm.
And I decided I was going to quit because my body couldn't be in that space anymore. Actually, the grant that was funding my position was coming to an end, and they were about to offer me another position from another grant.
Mm.
And just because of the way I was feeling, I decided, yeah, this is not it.
Mm.
So I decided to quit, and this is the first time in my life I quit and didn't have a backup plan. I had some savings. I was going to live off of that, but I knew my body couldn't handle being in the building.
Mhm.
And about 2 months later, I stopped working with them December 31st, 2019. And in February 2020, I took a systemic racism course. And the systemic racism course gave me the language that I think I was missing from being in that space. And I quickly realized that if I wanted to inspire educators, organizations, communities to do things differently, I wanted to do it under my own platform. Love is my brand. So I can't take credit for the name for the business because I was sitting down talking to a friend saying, yeah, this is what's going to happen. I really just need a name at this point. And then she turned around and she looked at me. She's like, how about love before all? I
Hmm.
said, that's perfect. She's like, yeah, it's who you are. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And then there and behold, Love Before All was born with the purpose of inspiring people to prioritize their wellness so that they can show up in a way that is well and they can influence wellness everywhere they go.
Wow. So this came at a pivotal intersection where you made a decision that like your body didn't agree anymore with continuing to do this thing that could be of benefit to folks, but wasn't helping you and your body. Could you share a little bit more about what it means to embrace that embodiment? Like what does that look like? One of the newest teachers for me is Princess Hempill. I'm from the Embodiment Institute, and I was introduced through the TEL program, the TEL fellowship, about what it meant to be embodied, and just embodied intention and just understanding that our bodies are constantly talking to us, speaking to us, telling us stories, and it is the center of all. And so could you share a little bit more about like how did you find that that was part of your gifting and lean into that a little bit more to give us some perspective on like, okay, this is how all of this kind of came together.
At the time, I don't think I recognized this, but from
Whoa.
being in a classroom, I was introduced to a social emotional program called Conscious Discipline.
Mm-hmm.
They do a really good job of leaning on emotions, but not only leaning on emotion, but in the program, it also specifically asks you, the curriculum brings you back to your body. Oh, you're feeling angry. Where in your body do you feel that? I think from being in, I was teaching in a classroom for a while with the program, with the curriculum. I started to embody these skills because I needed to teach them to the students in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I do professional development with teachers, I let them know that from a very young age, we don't realize that we disconnect children from their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
From, they're crying and you turn around like, what you crying for? You ain't got nothing to cry about. And then because you're a trusted adult that tells me I don't have anything to cry about, ignore these internal feelings that are happening that are telling me something is wrong. And I start to listen to you and I start to disconnect to these messages that are very important that tell me what I care about. And I start to disconnect from them. So I appreciated conscious discipline for starting to reconnect me to my body. And through the work of doing that, because I needed to teach that to the children in the classroom, I think a lot of that embodiment helped me. What I like to say is I relearned how to speak Annie.
Mm-hmm.
And part of speaking Annie meant listening to these body shifts, body movement, paying attention to the energetic field that I am putting out there to people, paying attention to my state and knowing how all of those things encompass self-awareness for me. And the more I could strengthen my self-awareness, the more I could maintain a harmonious and healthy relationship between people and me. But the
Mm.
embodiment for me really started with conscious discipline and then over time starting to see how systemically we disconnect from our bodies in ways that aren't helpful. So I leaned in and started listening to it more.
So a couple of things that I'm holding with this, which I appreciate the fact that what you have put before us is um, to give us permission to actually listen in and lean to our bodies. I think that for in the last 10 years, we've talked a lot more about embodied practices, even though I know that this is ancestral, it is cultural, it has been around, it's been in our DNA, in our walk, in our ancestry for hundreds and thousands of years. But because we don't live and occupy and reside in the lands that continue to nurture and find nourishment in those practices, I know that that is why we constantly have this, like, it's almost like that small ticker tape, or it's like a mosquito in your ears of knowing, like something ain't right, or I should be tapping into something, but I can't really put my hand on it or my name. I can't name it in a way that feels like home. And there's a couple of folks who came to mind. One is like Aja Simmons. Love Aja. She's a great master teacher for both of us. And she gave this incredible story about, and we were talking about New York and just like riding up to New York to go to this place that again will be remain nameless, but was our first center. And just that there was an energy that was traveling with her, that she had to try to figure out, like, am I carrying this with me in my body? Her articulating this and articulating the various things, I felt like gave me permission to really lean in and listen to my body. 40 plus years now. Like, I got 40 years and I not really listen to my body, but now being introduced to something, practice, an experience that felt radical, like liberating in ways I couldn't imagine. Two things that I hold from what you're sharing, that I think I'm pouring with is, one, you talked about, but there's two things. One, we must sit in our bodies so much. I'm trying to sorry, I had put down a quote that you had shared at some point. I was trying to pull it right back up, but it is going to escape me today. There's one part that you talk about people should realize their innate power to manifest the life they want. And also that you have to own choosing freedom and increasing, not just globally, but like your ecosystem, that world of yours will grow as you also hold on to compassion and kindness and love. And so I am wrestling with these ideas of, we're not seeing enough people demonstrating this in classrooms, in organizations, but we know that our young people are struggling in some ways. They may be disengaged. They may not be able to articulate, how this is functioning and showing up for them in their world. And I innately want to believe our young people care about fairness. They care about equity. They care about love and giving to the next person. I don't think that they're as disengaged and disconnected as even the New York Times did in their article. But I am recognizing that are they don't have the tools and language. And I don't know if our parents do, as well as educators. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, how are you fostering people thinking about this work differently, embracing or exploring this work as you talk about emotional intelligence, embodied intelligence, and just the work that you're doing?
I think I do prioritize us, and I'm in this instance, I'm talking about educators, children, teachers, and the health and the community in which they live by uplifting agape love specifically. And agape love, for those friends who aren't familiar, is the unconditional love we have for our brothers and sisters. So there's eros, that kind of, love I have with my boo boo.
Yeah.
And then there's philia. That's the kind of love that I have for you because we have a relationship and we're bonded. But agape love is just a general, unconditional love for humankind in general. And I think that is one big, big, big disconnect that I think we have in the world. It's like
Hmm.
we've lost track of agape love. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about interbeing. And then when I think about interbeing, this is what comes to mind. Agape love. I mean, and I had the privilege of also, from the principle of nonviolence that we started in the TEL fellowship, I
Yeah.
went even deeper and did a certification with the King Center, Nonviolence 365, which was amazing. And it brought me deeper into MLK Jr.'s, I felt like I got to know him in a way that I don't think I knew him before I went through the certification. And when I say agape love, I'm really looking at it in terms of the way that he talks about it. And when I work with individuals, educators, organization leaders, and communities as a whole, for me, there is an emphasis on agape love. And there's also this challenge to refuse normalizing harm and
Hmm.
accepting systems of oppression. It
Yeah.
also means anchoring in love before anything else.
Right.
And what that means for me is offering humankind the opportunity to really notice and see the interconnectedness between all of us.
Yeah.
And in that space, you really start to see we were having a meeting, a community meeting about navigating resources and for the people that we serve. And one of the things that I said clearly is we have to encourage people to see that the problem may not be in your house today,
Hmm.
but give it time. It eventually finds its way in your house.
Yeah.
And that's why, even though it's happening across the ocean, sometimes it's still our responsibility to care about it, to educate people on the issue. Because while it is happening across the ocean, eventually it finds its way in our home. And COVID, I use COVID a lot because it's a perfect example of that. The world at this point is so interconnected, and
Hmm.
I think we choose not to see the ways in which it is interconnected.
Yeah.
I also emphasize culturally responsive mental health resources, and I think that means, especially in the education spaces, challenging systems that prefer punitive approaches over healing ones.
Right.
And to your point about how disconnected folks are and our kids are not getting what they need, I hope and help leaders see that it isn't a blame game.
Hmm.
It's systems that we've inherited that we get to choose how we're going to deal with them. We don't have to do it the ways love our ancestors and they did the best they could,
Hmm.
but they also did enough to help us see things that they probably didn't see themselves.
Right.
So in that space, recognizing that we can do things differently and we do not have to adopt systems that perpetuate harm and oppression. And when I think about mental health resources in general, I had a conversation with a friend the other day who said, therapy just doesn't work for me. And then in the midst of that conversation,
Hmm.
he also shared, I have a best friend and he's the one I call. And I'm like, well, then he's your therapist. And I think we have to stop being so rigid with
Yes.
the way that we look at the world and think about how things happen so that we can tap into the resources that support us in achieving and creating the life that we want to create. And I do have a gift of sitting in the uncomfortable spaces,
Hmm.
but
Yes, you
if
do.
you're familiar with Enneagrams, I love the Enneagram because I'm an 8, which is a challenger. And I think it bodes well because my primary function, I think, professionally is a coach. So I think I have to be a challenger so that I can support my clients in pushing them into the spaces that they don't want to be in. But when I'm stressed out, I'm an individualist. That means I'm going in, I'm very retrospective. I start to think about, okay, what are the issues? What are the problem? I'm asking questions. And I think that's why I think I'm more willing to sit in spaces with people who are causing me harm because I can see their full humanity. And I also know, Craig, I can't change their mind if I don't choose to be in relationship with them. Like change does not happen outside of relationship. It doesn't matter where the change is trying to happen. When we're catalyzing change, we do so for people and we can't do it without people. So I invite people to think outside the box and I invite people to be truly honest with themselves in the life they want to create and then help them see that they have the power to do so regardless of the system of oppression that are in place. They just have to get creative on how they want to do it.
That is, I think that's one of the stretching aspects of who we are is we may not like to do that downward dog because you gotta stretch parts of your body that you might not have stretched in a while. And if you ain't did the downward dog, you're like, girl, hey, look, I don't know about this. Or just understanding that yes, it takes a lot of repetitions in order for you to appreciate what it will do for your body over the long term. I say that to say. It is connecting some of the ideas you shared. I'll speak for myself. I know that I didn't have all of the great teachers to actually be metacognitive with me, to walk me through how they hold their body, how they hold the stress, within their bodies, and how do they actually turn around and refrain when harm shows up. for them, or how do they manage trauma and also still move people forward, heart, mind, and spirit? Like, how do they do that work and be able to give us an opportunity to understand how that shows up in the work? But I do know that when did studies and research, that many times we found ourselves just building community around a circle, whether or not it was having a meal, whether or not it was at work or out, out in the field or what have you, that we were able to work through things in a very intentional way because we had formed this sense of community that was already especially designed, like it was already going to be therapeutic and help us and nourish us. I also heard, we're in this environment where people are carrying a lot of differences. I was sitting there trying to find the name of the show that at times I'm being honest, I'm like, I'm not always the one who wants to go and watch a conversation with a bunch of people who are deeply religious or deeply conservative in their values, espouse, these beliefs are biblical, blah, 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 that justifies why they other folks. But there's this show called Jubilee. I'm sorry, Surrounded, and it's on YouTube. And here you have 20 people and one expert, one person who's going to engage people who have a different perspective. And I always wonder, like, how do you fortify your body enough in order to be in spaces that radically feel countercultural to who you are, but still do that in a way of love? And what I'm hearing from you is that you have formed processes, protocols, and new awakenings for folks in doing that work. Could you share a little bit more about how you have been able to help move people along in that way?
Move people along, I will say there's a big part of me that doesn't expect more than who you are today. So I think we talk about, oh, I'm not perfect. But what I love to tell people is that you are perfect today.
Mm,
There's nothing about you today that needs to change because you are exactly who you need to be today
hmm.
for the things that need to happen. So perfection, I think we have to change. Like, you are exactly who you need to be. And I found that people are exactly who they need to be to support my growth.
You know that you saying a thing. You saying a thing that's saying a thing. I'm sorry. Like, it took me a minute to own, like, oh wow. Wow.
You are
Got it.
perfect as you are
Mhm.
today, in this
Mhm.
moment. I'll take a page out of your book. In this moment, you are perfectly who
Mhm.
you need to be. And I
Mhm.
think because I believe that innately, there's an approach about me that disarms people in general when they're talking to me. Because I don't have any expectations other than who you are right now. And that's who I love. That's who I'm receiving. And because I'm disarming now, I think what I'm really skilled at is also offering people an opportunity to take a look at their practice.
Mhm.
You are perfect as you are today because your actions is kind of leading somebody else's growth.
Mm.
And as you think about this, what I help you see is I help you process. Like, this is
Mhm.
what's happened. And these are the ways in which your action caused harm.
Mhm.
Now you go and reflect on that and you make the choice as to whether or not you want to continue to perpetuate that harm or
Mhm.
you want to do something about it.
Got it.
And you only can make that decision for yourself.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be honest with you, there are some days, even me, I say, not today.
Okay.
And when it's not today, to not perpetuate harm,
Mhm.
I just close off. I'm going to be by myself today because I know the alternative is to cause harm. And as somebody who is trying to diminish the amount of harm that she causes,
Mhm.
I know what to do to not cause harm. I disconnect. And that's why I'm saying sometimes disconnection is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a tool to help you minimize the harm you're going to cause. And that could look like I didn't get enough sleep last night. So I'm going to keep my office door closed today.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let my teachers know they can email me, they can text me. I'm gonna reschedule any important meetings that needed to be rescheduled. So it's going back to that embodiment as well. We have to
Yeah.
know ourselves well enough to know what our capacity is but that you can't do that for someone else.
Mhm.
And there's a power that comes in telling someone that you love them as they are, as they're messing up,
Hmm.
that also motivates them
Yeah.
to want to be more, to want to lessen the amount of harm that they're causing because of the way that you have held them and received them. So when I think about how and why I think I'm effective at supporting others, I think it's because I have little expectation other than we're going to work together to lessen the harm that we cause on the world.
Hmm.
I just want to chuck a biscuit at those people. I don't want to do that work of like holding my breath and whatnot. I'm like, why am I holding my stomach in when I want to just chuck a biscuit at your face? And like I said what I said internally. Like, but I want to externalize something else, but trying to be employed, right? I'm just trying to work the job because kids got to go to school. I am, oh gosh. Yeah, I'm really wrestling with that. I was like, oh wow, I got that. I got that. So you were perfectly designed for this moment because you are a contributor to my healing and growth if I choose to accept it. I have to hold that. I will manifest into something beyond this moment because I actually interface with you. It may be tough. I might not like it. And again, we have choices along the way of how we respond, how we react, how we have conversations with our bodies, how we have conversations with our younger selves. Because sometimes our younger self become, hey, yeah, I heard with, and it's like,
Oh,
hey, you, I need you to go sit down, 13-year-old Craig. They ain't talking to you, baby. They talking to 40 plus Craig. You know, he got a little bit more on his shoulders. He all right. You, I know, still working. Like we go to therapy. I externalize this, and I know it sounds funny to those who may not understand, but I understand that sometimes there's some parts of my lived experience as a younger person that did not get healed, and so that part of me shows up in conversations at really interesting times. And again, that is really part of that deep work that you have to do to understand who you are, how those things show up, and also honor that they may exist now, but it does not mean that that's a bad thing that they exist. It's really about what you do with it, right?
yeah. And may I offer you another perspective too on 13-year-old Craig?
Yes.
My therapist did a really good job at helping me look at this differently.
Mm.
When little 8-year-old Annie shows up,
Mhm.
she's asking for love. Try
Mm.
loving her instead of telling her to sit down and pushing her out of the way.
Got it.
And I said, she's asking for love.
Hmm.
13-year-old Craig said, love me, see me,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I wasn't seen when I was here.
Right.
I wasn't loved enough when I was here. So, but you at 42 can now love me and can show me, like, oh, this is why these things happened to you so that I could be who I needed to be today.
Wow. And I just got something. So it also means that there is a responsibility on me and not externalizing to someone else. Like I own, that's where you talk about the power. I own the power of also loving on this person. So yes, there may have been other folks who may have harmed that 13-year-old. I have the duty and honor of like loving on them as a different reaction, as a different,
Yes.
I have that. Wow. Okay. I'm holding that. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Feeling warm. Okay. So you've blended entrepreneurship, wellness, leadership in such a unique way. I'm curious, how did your own journey as a woman and a leader and as a visionary shape this path?
I They do this, well, now they're inviting wholeness into the workplace. But for the longest I wanted to be in a space where who I was, what I believed in was, like, I wanted to do something where all the things that I believed in would fit. And that's fighting oppression as a whole. And I use oppression intentionally because I do know there's a power in saying racism, there's a power in saying sexism, there's a power in saying all of the isms that are out there. I use oppression intentionally because I do think of Kimberly Crenshaw's work of intersectionality.
Right.
I can't separate the fact that I'm a woman from the fact that I mean, I have a hard time speaking about it separately.
Yes.
So there's a language shift that I use where I use oppression as a whole because the idea, if let's say if, and I'm going to use minority in terms of, because we know we're not the minority, if we can all, the people who are on the other side of oppression, come together,
Yes.
our voices will be loud. And I do think there's an intentional way that the isms keep us divided, keep
Yeah.
us focused on our own issues, which also cuts our leg off from being effective in a way. So when I think about who I am, what I've done is, well, wellness provided a really just all encompassing umbrella to address oppression as a whole and not just feel like I just need to focus on the racism end or the sexism end. And I'm using those too because I like to tell people the identities that I feel most oppressed in tend to be the most expressed ones, like Black, woman. Those are the two that just are very pronounced for me. And wellness provided an umbrella for me to work on those. And I started my career in education. And when I realized in education, early childhood as a whole, and then from that space, I learned that in the first 5 years of life, you're 90% of your brain volume. And there's a myth that's 90% of your brain is formed, but it's your brain volume that's in place because there's so many synapses and things that are going to happen. So your brain itself isn't formed, but the size of your brain, 90% of it is in place by the time you're 5. So there's a lot of opportunities in that first 5 years to rewrite the story of like the struggle is the way to be.
Yeah.
Suffering is the choice. And I like to point out that there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is very real. As human beings, we go through it, we endure it. Like it's a part of our being as human beings. But I like to say suffering is a choice. I do recognize that it is a choice that some of us are privileged to know that we have, where most of us do not realize it's a choice we're making.
Right.
So when I think about Love Before All, when it was creating, Love Before All offered me the opportunity to constantly evaluate how I can motivate people to see love, to your point earlier when you introduced me, as a strategy and not just this hippy dippy thing that we can do. How does love inspire compassion? How does it inspire kindness? And how can those two things drive our policies? And I don't mean policy legislatively, I mean policies within organizations. And then even though I prefer working with children to working with adults, I also recognize that in order to support the children, I could not support the adults that loved on them and that were tasked with caring for them. And that includes educators and families. So my work grew beyond children to now supporting adults, even organizations, because I recognize if I work with whole organizations, there are a lot of parents in those spaces, in addition to working with schools. So if I can work with organizations and work with managers to help managers instill those skills of compassion and kindness and effectiveness onto their direct reports who are parents now have other direct reports, and in thinking about how to amplify my impact, that's how I expanded to working with organizations and then eventually working with communities as a whole and community projects.
Yeah.
Really just to show people what creativity in terms of what does love look like when we're working on a community project? What does love look like when we're doing professional development? So a lot of my work now is around creating and building compassionate communities, whether it's in a school family, whether it's in a team dynamics, whether it's in a leadership component that's leading an entire organization, whether it's in a community project, an initiative that we're trying to launch to support a particular population. My job focuses on helping people see how love and compassion and kindness can be the pillars on which we're building whatever it is that we're creating.
There's so much that you have shared today that I'm just like really holding to, and some of the notes that I took down that I'm really working to hold on to. One, we have this gift of choice in how we experience liberation for ourselves individually. And it is about embracing a different frame of thought It is about actualizing how we love ourselves. And I think, and I want to dream forward that if we don't know, that we get clear on the ways we must love ourselves holistically and what really works for us and what makes our, like, how do we become tender? I think about Mina, how do we actually become tender with ourselves in this process of continuing to build connection? I also hold with me is this tension of I know that I spend a lot of time navigating anger, and that anger from past things that happened to me, relationships that played out the way they did, systems that aren't working for me, weren't designed for me, but are harming me, people harming me harming myself because we hadn't really talked about negative self trash, that mind trash, that negative self talk that also is violence. Right? We talk about being not, but I'm like, what are we speaking to our own selves? But I also understand that if we sit in our bodies and we own the centering and the rootedness of that, oppression can't it can't also reside in our hearts if we own the center of our own universe, who we are, the divine, however you want to call it. And so like I'm holding that in addition to like emotional intelligence requires this radical reimagining of belonging. It starts with you first. And who do you want to be connected to? And how do you occupy that space? I'm working to own the tension of like anger and love are not oppositional. I
Mm.
can hold that fire and bring it to a conversation, but I still can do that in a loving way. But I have to really navigate and be very clear about how that played out because that was something I brought with me. Is anger isn't always a bad thing. It's just like, how do I let that manifest into something for good and great and still connection? And finally, out of the things that you talked about today, I hold that like spiritual practice is also social justice practices as
Mm.
well. And so like I carry that with me. We're at the close of time and I'm just holding so much. But if there is someone who hears this conversation and hears nothing else, what is it that you want them to hold on to for themselves or a way they can dare more bravely in their own right and way to be more whole or be more loving to themselves? Like, what would you offer to them to hold today?
Immediately, I think I want to think about be true to yourself. And again, like I said, you're perfectly who you need to be in the moment. So be true to who that is and don't try to hide it. But I
Okay.
think most of all, don't try to do this alone. Do not try to do this alone. Because one thing I think about is what refuels me every time without fail are the people in my life. Whether I'm using the memories that we've made together in solitary
Hmm.
as a reminder of the vast amount of love that I have present in my life, or I'm fueling myself with actually spending time with the people that I love. I cultivate an active relationship with stress, movement, music, nature, whatever it is that you need to do to make self care a lifestyle, not just something that you do every now and then. And then I center joy. Like I find joy in just about anything. Like my
Oh.
smile comes easy
Hmm.
and I center joy in all of that. And like and you can see it in my, if you know me, you feel it in my body, you see it, you
Yeah.
experience it. And more importantly, remember that healing it's a process.
Hmm.
It's a process, it's not a destination. And healing, if you're a leader, healing is your purpose.
Hmm.
Because when you heal, you lead in a loving way. When you heal, you lead in an effective way that also motivates and inspires those that you're leading to also do the healing necessary to diminish the harm that they're inflicting on the world. So don't do this work alone, ever.
Right. A word. A word. So how can folks stay connected to you, follow Love Before All, bring you to their communities to do some beautiful and very necessary work together?
The best and fastest way is through my website, lovebeforeall.com. And I'm also on Instagram under Conscious LBA. So Love Before All, Conscious LBA. And I am also on Facebook under Conscious LBA as well. The website does have a blog that's dropped on LinkedIn. Love Before All is the page on LinkedIn. So that happened. We took a break in July, but we're picking back up again in August. And our blog is a great way to keep picking up on some of these gems that I got to share today.
Okay.
And yeah.
We're going to tag all this in the show notes. I'm excited. And so thank you so much, Annie, for being in community and having this very necessary conversation with me and before the world. I'm really appreciative of
Yeah,
this.
thank you for having me. I can't express the gratitude I feel for the opportunity to share my voice because I love to share my voice. And thank you for the platform and for the opportunity to do so.
It's a beautiful gift. So thank you so much. All right, fam. That's a wrap on this episode. I'm struggling. If nothing stirred in you, like, baby, I need you to tap or something. Like, just breathe, touch grass, cartwheel. Like, just put your finger in a little hot tea bag or something. I don't know, but like, I need you to feel the love all up and through here. Please share this conversation with folks who are in your village, your loved ones, your brave ones, y'all. Join us at bravevoicespod.com. If you want to be a guest, you want to tune in, you want to subscribe, you want to like, you want to suggest folks who we should have conversations with, like that, this space is especially designed for you. Until next time, I want y'all to generate your own joy. Never go it alone, y'all. Get free and always love your brave. Y'all take care.